is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody. Welcome today. We are going to be talking about RapidiOnline and how easy it is to integrate Dynamics Dynamics products with Salesforce. Today, we're going to be using a Dynamics Nav 2017 demo instance to do that. My name is Sean Abity. I'm the head of customer success for RapidiOnline. And I'd like to make sure everybody can hear me okay. If you can't, please raise your hand or ask a question so we can get started here. We have a lot to cover. And today we're going to walk you through a simple demo as I talk about the Rapidi platform and the solution that we offer and how we can make your ERP data come alive in Salesforce and make that really useful and impactful across the enterprise. And if you just want to give me 1 second here. All right, I don't see anybody raising hands or asking questions. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're talking about how easy it is to integrate ERP with Salesforce. And the Rapidi solution, our core solution set is connecting Salesforce to Microsoft Dynamics applications. And when I say that, I'm talking about not only the Dynamics AXGP Nav connecting to Salesforce Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, but I also like to point out that the Rapidi platform is a full integration platform. So it's an open data integration platform. It's in the cloud. We connect not only to the AXGP Nav Dynamics products, but also to the new Dynamics 365 Business Central and Finance and Operations products that are available from Microsoft in the cloud. We have other connections to other APIs available for actual applications, as well as directly to databases, and we do have a REST API connector available. Requires a little bit of custom work to make it happen, but we connect to a custom app that has open APIs available also. And what happens with the Rapidi technology is we do a direct transfer of data without any staging required. And by direct transfer, I mean this is a point-to-point transfer. So in our example today, we're using Nav 2017. There's a SQL Server database on the back end, supports that. So we do a direct transfer from a SQL Server table or view directly to a Salesforce object. And we transform the data at the field level. And I'm going to show you in the platform how simple and easy that is. Because on the Rapidi approach to this is a no-coding approach similar to Salesforce. So I like to say that if you can write a successful formula in Excel, you will be able to manage a data transformation and integration using Rapidi. I forgot to mention at any point, please post your questions into the webinar, and we'll be stopping along the way to answer them as we move forward. Okay, excuse me. So the benefits you get out of integrating. We'd like to talk about how it easily enables disparate teams within an organization to collaborate with each other because you're activating some data that you already have within the enterprise and making it available and useful to everybody in the enterprise. You get that 360-degree customer overview available from your CRM, as well as making sure that your data is synchronized and the most up-to-date data that you can have in ERP. So this really easily enables your internal teams to collaborate a lot more efficiently and effectively. And when we talk about efficiency, we're talking about eliminating double data entries. There's no more swivel chair, processes going on where somebody has to enter data in one application, turn around, enter the same data in another application. As a result of eliminating that, you eliminate a lot of rework, a lot of points of error, and it also enables you to make better use of some of the automation tools that are available on each side of the integration. So in Salesforce and Nav, you can automate a lot of things. If you have this data flowing and you can rely on the data and it's synchronized properly, you can rely on a lot of automation to really step up the effectiveness and efficiency of your organization. And as a result of having this data integrated and synchronized properly, you increase the quality of your entire data set. So you get data you can trust, you can produce more impactful, better reporting. We have seen our customers report increased user adoption on the Salesforce CRM side because users now have a fuller picture of customers and they can rely on the data. And because Rapidi, our core solution set is connecting Salesforce with Dynamics products, but we are an integration platform. So we can be there to grow with the company. We can help support better decision-making efforts. You can use, as a result of having this data integrated and not being able to use one tool to manage your entire data enterprise, you have the ability to increase your customer satisfaction, allowing you to sell more, sell faster, improve your service levels, and everything like that. Okay, so a little bit about the solution. So the MyRapidi.com platform lives in the cloud, and this is where we configure all the integration configuration. So this is where we set up the connectivity to endpoints. Our advanced data toolbox is where we manage all the data transformations, what data is moving between what entities and when. There's a full-featured scheduler facility in there, so we set up individual transfers. A transfer is data moving from one entity on one side to one entity on another side. Now, on the Dynamics side, depending on the version of the application, Dynamics application that you're using, that could be a direct connection to through SQL to a table. That could be a web service connection. And the Rapidi technology, we like to use the web services available on the Dynamics side to make sure that we're triggering all kinds of application functionality that live over there. So it would be just like somebody sitting in front of Nav or Great Plains or AX, looking at the customer card, entering it manually. Rapidi uses the inbound web services and stored procedures to trigger all the underlying application functionality to make sure that all the dimensions and everything like that could live over there are getting written properly. And I mentioned stored procedures, so we can connect to stored procedures too. And we can also connect to not only the direct SQL data source, but also a SQL view as a data connection that would be used to bring source data out of ERP to be sent over to Salesforce. So there's a lot of flexibility in how you can set up these connections so that you get the right data kind of formatted in the proper way at the right time for your integration. Also on the MyRapidi.com platform, we have full featured logging and notification. So you can set up Rapidi to notify you at certain times, if there should be some kind of data error or something happening with the integrations as they're running, you can send a notification. And I'm going to review that a little bit later on in the webinar as we look at the platform. And this is also where we have the details related to installing the Rapidi connector. So the Rapidi connector, since we are living in the cloud, Salesforce is in the cloud, RapidiOnline is in the cloud, a lot of the Dynamics products, with the exception of the D365 products, they are on-premise. So the Rapidi connector is a small exe. It gets installed as a service. Usually we recommend installing it on the database server that supports the Dynamics application that we're connecting to. And that's what talks, excuse me, that's what talks to the local Dynamics installation, enables them to talk to the RapidiOnline configuration in the cloud, and then RapidiOnline in the cloud talks to Salesforce in the cloud. We have our, part of our solution is we provide pre-configured integration templates. So these support a best practice business process. These best practices, even though everything's pre-configured out of the box, they're completely customizable and they're fully documented. So we have seen customers experience a really rapid implementation with a successful integration because they take our pre-configured solution and they start from there. So you're not starting from zero. We have figured out a lot of the mappings and a lot of the pre-configured integration templates that we have already take into account some of the little idiosyncrasies and differences between the Dynamics products. So we don't have to do a lot of reconfiguration or modifications or changing the existing pre-configured templates or things like that. Customers can take these, start straight out of the box, within a couple days, be able to do some test transfers, and then we build on it from there. Now, having said that, in the Rapidi platform, it's completely customizable. We do have customers who have, for instance, a third-party application developed that runs alongside a Dynamics installation, connecting that data to a completely customized Salesforce application. With the Rapidi technology, we don't have any problems at all handling any customizations on either side. So if you have a customized view, stored procedure, if you add fields, for instance, into your nav implementation, you have custom fields, as long as you put them on the proper card and you publish that card as a web service and Rapidi can connect to it, we're able to talk to those customized fields. Likewise, on the Salesforce side, we can handle any custom object and field. Part of our solution also includes what we like to call our sales history extension. These are currently the pre-configured Salesforce objects to hold the ERP data coming back. So we've kind of already done the work for you to configure that. It's already got the proper lookups to the existing objects in Salesforce. There's the sales history header, which are invoices, the line items associated with that, sales orders, which are open orders from ERP, the line items associated with that also, and then the ledger entries. The ledger entry transfers that we have built are particularly useful because that brings over a record of anything that's been posted to the customer account into Salesforce. Now, a lot of times what happens is sales activity is happening over in CRM in Salesforce. And so we're pushing over open orders and we're getting back records of invoices and shipments and things like that. And in the operational area, users of ERP can be working with these customers also and posting things to the ledger that don't originate in Salesforce. But because we have our pre-configured transfer to bring those individual postings back into Salesforce and connect them to the account, we are now really delivering the full 360-degree picture of what's happening operationally with the account to your Salesforce users. So you can eliminate, the calls between sales ops and finance, the emails to track things down. You're able to get answers for customers directly from Salesforce without having to send an email requesting information to somebody else and waiting for that to come back and then delivering that to the customer. So it really provides that 360-degree customer view where you're combining your relationship management data with your actual operational data. At the first quarter of this year, we released our new Erp Lightning Components, and I'll show you an example of those two in a minute. And these are also available currently as an unmanaged package. And when I say unmanaged, what that means is once you become a subscriber and you obtain the sales history extension objects along with the Lightning components, if you're using Lightning in Salesforce, you can customize these however you want. Once you get them, they're yours. At some point later this year, those Lightning components will be part of a managed package because right now, because they are unmanaged, if you're on Professional Edition in Salesforce, you will not be able to use the Lightning components. But these provide a different view to the ERP data. It's a lot easier to access that data using these components versus the standard Salesforce related lists. But our objects do work in Lightning or Classic. So if you're sticking with Classic, you can still use the RapidiOnline solution and our sales history extension. I'd like to spend some time talking about our approach to support. Rapidi, we like to consider ourselves partners with our customers versus a single-purpose technology provider. So to that end, when we talk about support, we go beyond just answering some technical questions for customers as they arise. We like to help maintain integrations. So if once you're live and in production and things are running and you have a need to change something or do some minor modifications, we will do that usually within the context of a support call. If it's a much bigger change or addition, we may step back and say we need to scope that as a small add-on project. But a lot of times we can take care of these things because the solution is easy to use and configure. We can take care of it within the context of support. And we do that all the time for customers. So we add fields to existing transfers. We make changes to existing transfers in terms of the transformation of the individual attributes. And we also will, at times, add a small new transfer, depending on the number of hours we think it might take. Also, when we talk about support, we like to, in the context of being partners with our customers, we like to be there as an integration advisor. So we like to participate and help customers sort out process questions, figure out the right things to do from an enterprise perspective regarding integration. And we will also help customers resolve data errors. We all know we can build lots and lots of error trap mechanisms to prevent errors from happening, but users are users and they will do whatever they want to do. So when that happens, most of the time when we see an error in the RapidiOnline transfers, it's related to something going wrong with data. And then we can handle that sometimes through Rapidi, sometimes through validation rules in Salesforce, and other different ways. Okay, our pre-configured data flows. So this is an example of what it looks like for our pre-configured flows. And like I said, these are totally customizable. So our best practice says we do a bi-directional sync of accounts and customers. Now, bi-directional, that means that we can take the data from Salesforce, push it over to Dynamics, take it from Dynamics, push it over to accounts. That facility is available, but I always like to caution customers to make sure you have a really rock-solid process in place regarding where the data originates, from whom and why, so that you can claim one of these applications as the master. You can enable users to enter data on both sides and have it sync up properly, but you really want to make sure you have a solid process defined if you want to go that direction. The same thing for contacts with the bidirectional sync. Now, as a best practice, from ERP side, we take the items that are entered in ERP and we push them over to Salesforce. We take item prices that are entered in ERP and we push them to Salesforce also. Now the prices are pre-configured standard templates. We take the unit price from the item table in Dynamics and we push that into the standard price book in Salesforce. We are able, though, to integrate multiple price lists to price groups. So if you have specialized customer pricing that lives in ERP, we can push that into multiple price books as necessary in Salesforce. When opportunities, as part of our best practice, we look at opportunities as once they're closed won, you have a sale, we push that over to an open sales order in Dynamics, and then we take that sales order, and once it's in Dynamics, we bring it back over into Salesforce, into the pre-configured Rapidi extension object, so it's available for display related to the customer. Any ledger entries, shipments, credit memos, credit notes, things like that, come from Dynamics into the pre-configured objects that come with the Rapidi solution. So as I mentioned, we do a lot of the mapping already. We already have the Salesforce objects defined to handle this. Everything's completely customizable, so it can be straight out of the box with Rapidi or a totally customized integration implementation. And we've had a lot of documentation around our best practices. We do have a top rating on the Salesforce App Exchange, but the biggest thing we like to do is we don't think integration should be a big traumatic project for anybody. So we like to say, don't worry, we're going to hold your hand through the entire thing. We do have our no programming approach, so there is no specialized knowledge required to configure the integration using the Rapidi platform. Even regardless of the amount of customizations that live in Salesforce or Dynamics, you don't need to know how to write a single line of code to make this happen. We also don't put any limits, so we are not constrained by a number of users in either application. You can transfer as much data as necessary, and you can have as many transfers moving that data as necessary. So once you become a subscriber, you have access to the platform, and you can really use it to enable this data to come alive within your whole organization. So it's really simple. With a standard subscription, you can create new mappings yourself. It's very fast since we have a lot of work pre-done already. It's very robust. There's no programming, and we're using the best practice configurations. And it's flexible. You can set these transfers up to be any direction, bidirectional. Any of our pre-configured data flows, you can change that around to match your process as necessary. All right, let's see. So one of the best practices we like to support here and we like to walk through is our quote to cash example. So everything that's happening in the blue boxes is going on in CRM and Salesforce. Everything in the white boxes is happening in Dynamics. So in as you go through your sales process, you're bringing leads into CRM, converting them to accounts, working opportunities, quoting them as necessary, and then you get to the point where your opportunity is closed won. You have a sale. Now it's time to make sure we have a customer in Dynamics and an open sales order that we can transact. Rapidi pushes that data over to Dynamics. We have the ability to set up a way to check to see if my customer already is an existing customer in Dynamics, and if not, make sure that they get over there first before I try to create the order. And then once the order is created in Dynamics, so we get an order number, we bring that back over so it's visible in Salesforce. Then as the order makes its way through its standard ERP lifecycle, we're bringing back the shipment history, the sales history, invoice history, any credit memos, anything like that. And then we also bring back the records of payments that are applied. So anything that's posted to the customer account is in the ledger entry. We look at the type, and once that's back in Salesforce, you can do whatever you want with that data once it's in Salesforce, report on it, dashboards, etc. Now, over in the left-hand bottom corner, this is an illustration of how we can use Rapidi to synchronize master data between these systems. So in our basic pre-configured quote-to-cash process support here, we're moving products and items. We're synchronizing those. Prices, we're synchronizing those. The XXX to YYY relationship on that last line is to demonstrate that we can take any customized field table, SQL view, stored procedure, web service that lives in Dynamics and connect that to any custom table or object and field that lives in Salesforce. Okay. And you can see the open orders, sales history, and payment history, those blue boxes that are in the middle at the bottom. Those are Rapidi app extension objects, so that is what gets delivered to you as part of the solution also. And these are standard Salesforce objects. You apply whatever visibility rules you need to apply to them. You can link these things to any other custom object you may have in your Salesforce environment. Like I said, they're part of an unmanaged package. Once you have them, you can do whatever you need to do with them. Okay? All right, so let's get into it. So hopefully everybody doesn't look like this. I'm here on the East Coast. It's almost 10:30 in the morning. So everybody should be on their second cup of coffee and be wide awake. If you're on the West Coast, it's a little earlier. If you're elsewhere in the world, hopefully I haven't put you to sleep. Now, one thing, because there's a couple things I want to go over as we do this demo. Number one is I am going to be using a Salesforce Lightning environment. That's a demo environment that was just spun up. There is some test data in here that we'll be using today, as well as a bunch of other test data that was created to support a display of reports. I also have open in an Azure VM my Dynamics 2017 demo environment. So we'll be taking a look at that. And just for complete transparency, I also have open a SQL client in the background because I want to do a quick update of some records when the time comes, because it's just going to be a lot easier than navigating through Dynamics to do it. And I also have open RapidiOnline. And we are going to talk a little bit about the platform right now before we start looking at some data. So this is what a user would see when they log into Rapidi. So we have this landing page. We have a little bit of a dashboard where we can see what's going on with the Rapidi service. We can start and stop it. We can use this facility if we have any schedules running in an automated fashion. We use this to delay those schedules while we're doing some work in this platform if we need to. So I'm going to start with some basic things, and as we walk through this demo, I'll come back to some of these items also for a little bit more detail. The first thing I want to go over here is this connections facility. Now you see I have a lot of connections set up in this environment for this demo. So I have a straight SQL connection to Navision. You can see I'm connected, and here's how I define my connectivity. The important thing here to note is that once I set this up and I click this test button and it says that I'm connected, I click Read Design. And what Read Design does is it takes all of the metadata that lives at the endpoint of this connection, and it brings that into the RapidiOnline platform. And once I'm there with that, I'm able to use that metadata when I am configuring my individual transformations of data from one end to the other. The important point here is this works the same way for all our connections. So when I look at my Salesforce connection, I have the same thing. I have test, redesign, brings in all the metadata. Same thing for my web services connection. I'm using Dynamics Nav for this demo, so we're using web services in the Nav environment. The important thing to note here is that with this technology, as I'm configuring, testing, rolling out to UAT, whatever I'm doing with the integration project, if I get to the point where I say, oh, we need to have a field, an additional field in Salesforce to hold another element that we want to bring over from Dynamics, and I'm using this as just an example, I can go to Salesforce. You all know it only takes a couple minutes to add a new field to an object or even to create a new object. Once it's created in Salesforce, I come back into Rapidi, I go to my connection, I click redesign. The new object or field that I've created in Salesforce within a few minutes is now available in the RapidiOnline platform for me to use to configure my transfer. So I don't have a long development cycle. If I've been on projects in past lives where something like that would happen, where you're just getting into UAT, a requirement was missed, we have a field that's critical for the process, and it's going to be 2 to 3 weeks before we're able to use that field and get it in there. We've just delayed the whole project by a month because we're not able to complete the UAT, etc. Using the Rapidi platform like this, you can eliminate those problems, and you can just get right over them, usually in the space of a half an hour. So this is a very nice feature of this tool. So once we have our connections established and we've read the metadata, we're able to start looking at separate transfers. Now I'm going to jump over to our schedule facility. And what we do with schedules is we combine all the transfers into a group, and then we assign the group to run in a schedule. So to make life a little bit easier for the demo, I have all of my demo transfers in one particular group, and I'm going to look at them all here. I am not going to run the schedule today because I want you to see how this works. So when we do each step of the demo, I'm going to be running the transfers manually. But here's all my transfers that I've set up. And one thing that I'm going to use right out of the gate here is you'll see this nomenclature where I have connection, tag in between parentheses, the Salesforce word in between these parentheses. We call these tags in Rapidi. And tags enable us to set up essentially default values that can be constants that are used in the execution of the transfer. So when the transfer runs, what Rapidi does is it takes the value assigned to this tag code, and it substitutes that value at runtime in my transfer. Now, the important thing to note about this is this facility now enables us to connect to different companies in ERP. So a lot of customers, they have multiple operating entities in ERP and one Salesforce environment. What this enables us to do with these tags is to build one transfer that takes that Salesforce, for instance, account data, and can use that one transfer to push that account data to customers in different operating entities in Nav. So within Nav, each company that you set up as a database, it would be an additional connection, which is why we have the connection string as a tag. So we say, okay, here's my account connection, and we can use all kinds of formulas and functions within the transfer itself to determine which company an account belongs to, but you are only configuring the one transfer, and you're able to use that transfer with 1 to X number of entities that live in ERP. It's very handy. It reduces a lot of the overhead with managing multiple companies in ERP and making sure they're all integrated properly. So today, what we're going to do, and I am going to show you this with a tag right now, is we're going to set up a demo code for today's demo. So I'm going to take the first 4 names of my attendee list here, and I'm going to use the the letter of each person's first name. So I have A, D, J, and J. And in my tags, I'm going to set up this demo prefix. And today's demo prefix is going to be ADJJ. And I'm going to make a note of that so I don't forget it. So now what I've done, I've set this tag value, and I'm going to show you the first transfer that we're going to execute here. I'm going to go from my schedule first. Make sure I'm only looking at the transfers I want to look at. And when I look at my demo item transfer from nav, I'm going to talk about some of the pieces of this transfer configuration. The first one I'm going to talk about is down in this filtering area. So in Rapidi, we have the ability to get very granular in the way we are selecting data from the source. And so we can have a bunch of different transfers set up, and we use this filter source to really get very granular on how Rapidi looks at the source data to determine what it wants to bring over and integrate. So in this case, it's not that granular. I only want to get the ones where I have a value in this shelf number column in nav item that matches my demo prefix that I just set up, ADJJ. But I'm using this tag value, so I don't have to go in and reconfigure the transfer every time. I have used these demo transfers multiple times, and it's very nice that I can just go in and set the individual value up in the tag part of that, and I don't have to change any of the filter source at all for these transfers. Okay, so that's the filtering facility that we have available. Now when we look at how we set up the transfer itself, we define its source, the source layout, the destination layout. You can see here that I'm using these tags again because we use this transfer in different ways to connect to different demo systems. So I'm able to specify using this tag, my ERP demo system that I'm using at a particular point in time, or my Salesforce demo system I'm using at a particular point in time. I identify my source table, destination table. So of course in Salesforce that'll be an object depending on if you're source or destination. And then I use these checkboxes over on the right to define what I'm doing with this transfer. So one thing I need to mention about the Rapidi technology, and I skipped over this in the introduction, my background is in implementing CRM. I implemented Siebel CRM for many years, and then I've been working with Salesforce. So once you start working with Salesforce and you're building out things like workflow rules, automation, integration, stuff like that, you become very conscious of consumption of API calls. Because if you consume all of your API calls in the Salesforce environment at one point in time, you completely fall apart. Everything stops running because there's no more API calls available. Salesforce doesn't know what to do. Rapidi, the platform itself, has been designed to be very conscious of judiciously using API calls to take data in and out of Salesforce. And there's different ways we use things in the transfers to even improve that. One of these ways is when we set up this transfer, what I'm doing here with this particular transfer is by using update and add together, I'm able to invoke the Salesforce upsert functionality. So if the item does not exist in Salesforce yet, it will be added. If it does exist in Salesforce, it will be updated. And because I'm using the upsert, I can only consume one API call to do that. Okay. Let me just check here real quick, see if there's any questions. If you just want to hang on for 1 second. All right, thanks for that. Okay, so the next thing we want to talk about, especially when we're talking about consumption of API calls, we have a sophisticated source control mechanism here, and I'm going to open these two things up so you can see them. In another transfer, we'll look at this in more detail. You can see I'm using this commit per facility here that says 200. So if you're familiar with data loading in Salesforce, you know that you can chunk data up. Salesforce can handle 200 record transactions in one API call, and the Rapidi technology is built to accommodate that also. So depending on any kind of automation rules or things like that, or what the particular transfer is doing, you can set this value from 1 to 200. And when this transfer runs, it will only consume one API call per however many source records it's handling. And I'm going to talk about some of these fields in another transfer that we're going to look at as part of the demo. In this table link area, this is where I establish the cross-reference between these records on each side. So for this transfer, I'm saying that the number field coming from the nav item table is going to be my cross-reference, and that's going to be the product code field in the product to object in Salesforce. And here's where I've actually configured the meat of the transfer. This is a pretty simple one since it's just items. So this tells me I'm moving my source field from number in item in nav over to product code and product to in Salesforce. Description is going to name. I have a formula here. So remember I said that if you can write a successful formula in Excel, you can configure a data transformation with Rapidi. So here's an example of a simple formula that writes a Boolean field over to tell me whether the product's active or not. So it's based on whether it's blocked in nav. It's going to be active or inactive in Salesforce. And I'm moving the description to description. So this is a pretty simple one, but this is the first one we're going to take a look at. And we're going to get into some more complicated ones in a little bit. And we have some advanced features here that should you become a subscriber and we need to employ these for you, we'll be able to do that. One of the key things I'm going to talk about in a little bit regarding these advanced features is we have subtransfers. So subtransfers can do things like handle related records moving. The key point to know about having subtransfers in a transfer configuration is the whole entire thing is treated as one transaction. So if something fails, it all gets rolled back. And if there's a data error for some reason, you're not left with, say a sales order header with no lines or lines that are not linked to a sales order header, etc. So this is a very handy feature also. If you have experience dealing with integrations in the past, you have experienced the heartache of trying to unwind data that has gone wrong if an integration has failed. So we work very hard to make sure that that doesn't happen. And if we do have to do something like that, it's as easy as possible. Okay, so this is our first transfer. This is the one I'm going to run first because the first thing I'm going to do in support of our practice is make sure that the items I want to make available for sale in Salesforce are actually in Salesforce. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my nav system. And here's a list of items that I've already set up in nav. This shelf number, if you recall, this is the filter that I've set on my item transfer. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to run this SQL. Well, first let me show you what it looks like in nav. So I have a bunch of Rapidi objects or items that I've used in the past. You can see some other codes that have been set in here. But today we're going to take all these ones where my item number is RPD01, starts with that. So these next 10 items we're going to update with today's demo code. So today's demo code is ADJJ. And that's what I had put into my tag value in the Rapidi transfer. And I'm just going to run this update. 10 rows affected. Perfect. I don't need to look at that again. Let me refresh this. And I have today's demo code in my 10 items. So these are ready to go. And you can see that I have unit prices established here too. So I'm going to go back to Rapidi. Oh, sorry, I'm in my VM here. I'm going to go back to Rapidi, and I'm just going to run this transfer, and I'm selecting my set of tags that support the movement of the data between the two endpoints I've set up. So like I mentioned before, I set up these tags. I can use this transfer for this one. It's going into a different nav environment, a different Salesforce environment, etc. Today's the day, the one I'm using today. So I'm going to run this transfer. Hopefully we'll get the 10 items across. we share these environments, so I'm hoping that nothing has happened in any of them at the time before I've started doing this webinar. Great. So Rapidi tells me I got 10 from the source. I've added 10. I'm going to go into Salesforce. I probably should have showed you this first, but I'm going to use my Rapidi demo products list. Here's all my product codes that have been added to Rapidi. So these are products. They're in the Salesforce product to table now. They're linked by the product code to what I've had in them in Nav. You can see they were just added today, just now. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is bring the prices over, because I want to be able to use these in opportunities. So my next transfer that I'm going to look at and run manually here is going to be my item transfer. So I don't need to go back over everything, right? So other than these are some specific functions that we're using to make sure that we're looking up the right thing. So this is how we manage in the source or destination. If we need to look up a record ID or some unique value or something like that, we can do it within the transfer at the attribute level. So we don't have to build a lot of things on the source side to make sure that this value is available to be written correctly to this field. Likewise, we don't have to do it on the destination side. We don't have to have a custom field over in Salesforce and then some process builder that runs and does something with it to make the field actually usable. We can set all that up within Rapidi using these formulas. So this is going to create price book entries for my new products, because right now I don't have them. I don't have any pricing for these products. So none of my RPD 01 product codes are in the price book yet. And I'm going to be conscious of time here, so I'm going to start moving along a little bit quicker. Great. So now I should have, if I can just do a quick refresh on this, I have all my unit prices from Navision attached in the standard price book to my new items. Great. So I am ready to start selling something. These are some opportunities I had in place before for previous demos. These are my demo accounts I've set up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new opportunity. And this is going to be, I'm going to call it 80JJ. That's our demo code today. And it's going to close. It's going to close today because we're like superstar sellers and we can do everything. But I want to show you one thing here. Right now we're in a perception analysis stage. My account name, I'm going to go with one I haven't used yet. PD store number 5. I didn't get very creative with naming my accounts. This is new business. You'll see I have this create in Nav and create order number here. And I'm going to talk about what gets set in these fields, but we're not going to set these manually. We're going to have Rapidi set these. You see I have transfer date and time here too. The important thing I need to add into this opportunity is today's demo code. I'm going to save it. I'm actually going to create 2. Things seem to be a little bit slow today. So today, we're going to close this today. We're in a different stage here. The opportunity name is 80JJ, opti number 2. And this is going to be a different account. Oops. Clicked the wrong thing. Oh, I'm sorry. They're not called Rapidi accounts, they're called Rapidi stores. Again, it's new business. I'm not setting anything related to the integration yet because I haven't integrated them yet. So I have my new opportunities are ready to go. Now, an important thing I'm going to show you here right now is that when I look at my customer list in Navision, okay, look at my Rapidi demo customers. I don't have number 5 or number 6 yet. You can see my filter is just RapidiStore. So these 2 new opportunities I've entered in Salesforce, these are my new leads that I've just converted, right? I have just sold something. I'm using Salesforce to manage the opportunities. I'm now going to go to Salesforce. I'm going to win these opportunities because I want them to be pushed down to my ERP system for processing. So I'm going to look at my opportunities here. First I have to add some products, right? Oh, and I forgot to add the demo code. All right, done. Let me add a couple products to these. I'm adding this to the right. Yes, sorry. So I'm going to add a couple products to these. I'm going to use my new products. Let's see, here's one of the new products. I'm going to pick both of these guys. One thing you'll see that I have the demo, I have my sales price, right? This came from my standard unit price from Navision. So I'm going to order 10 of these and 10 of these, but I'm giving this guy a discount. So if you're using CPQ and Salesforce, you know how this sort of works, and you can get your sales prices based on whatever you're actually selling at the time for whatever reason. And I'm giving him a discount. These are going for 25 each. And these ones will be, let's say, 22 each. Because when I transfer this order to Navision, I want my sales prices, right? So Rapidi is going to send the sales prices down to the Navision order line items. All right, so I have that opportunity. And for this one, I'm going to pick a couple different items that I just transferred. Now you can imagine if we have the schedule set up and these things are running in the backgrounds, all this activity is happening throughout the daily course of business between Salesforce and Navision. People are doing whatever they need to do to make things happen. I'm going to stick with the sales prices for these. So the transfers run automatically on set schedules. So all this data is moving in the background. And you don't need to worry about, timing. Can I look at an opportunity? Can I process an order yet? People would just go into Navision throughout the course of their normal day, say, here's some new sales orders. Let me invoice them, whatever I need to do. Likewise, on the Salesforce side, you'll be seeing the data flowing back in. Okay. So now, important thing to note, what I've done here, I have something set up to make this happen. And I'm going to look real quick. You'll see I have create and nav is here blank. This is not checked. No nav order number. If I look at my related account for these, this flag is a no, and I don't have a customer number yet, and it hasn't been transferred. So these are accounts that live as accounts. They are not customers yet. I've just sold something to them today. These are over here on the right side. These are our Erp Lightning objects. So this is a lot of test data that already exists related to this account. So I'm displaying the test data. I can link to the product. I can link to the invoice. And we're going to look at these things in a few more minutes. All right, so now I have a workflow rule set up. So this is a part how I'm enabling a better use, a more effective use. I want to say more effective use. I'm enabling an effective use of automation because I have the ability to integrate this data. So when I go to my demo opportunities, I am actually going to update these. So when I select this one and this one, I'm going to update these to closed one. And I'm going to save it. So you see how I have my create and nav flag set. So I'm telling Rapidi, okay, these are ready to go. Before we do this, I'm going to show you what this transfer is actually going to do. So I'm sending opportunities down to sales orders in nav, and I'm using the nav sales order web service to do this. When we talked about the source control, one key thing happens here. You'll see that I'm able to set a date time field or a Boolean field as a result of the transfer happening. And I'm also able to write a value into my source table when the transfer happens. this store new ID field works in conjunction with the way that cross-reference links are set up. And what it's saying is, what it's telling Repeated to do is every time I commit a successful record, take the number field from my destination when the record was created successfully and write it back in here. I'm covering this because I want to point out that this happens in the space of one transaction. I don't have to go back and look at anything, see what the status is, has anything been transferred, do I need to update anything on either side? It all happens in the space of one transaction, and as mentioned before, if something were to fail, it all rolls back. One thing about the commit per and these source fields in conjunction with filter source, you'll see in this, I'm using my nav demo prefix. My create and nav flag has to be true, and my nav order number has to be null. So I know that this should go to nav, and it hasn't yet. Okay. With the way the source control works, if we're running a transfer and you have a data error on record, if it's 5,000 records, you get to record 4,900 and you experience a data error. Or what most likely happens is because we have the Rapidi connectors running on-premise, it's talking to RapidiOnline in the cloud. RapidiOnline in the cloud is talking to Salesforce in the cloud. So that's multiple hops, including hops through the cloud, right? So you can lose connectivity for a second or two in there. And most of the time, it is totally unnoticeable to end users. But if a transfer happens to be running when that happens, it will crash. You don't have a connectivity on one side, the thing's going to fail. So if you're running a transfer that says, I have 5,000 records in this batch I want to send because they've met my filter conditions when the transfer executes, and you experience this loss of connectivity somewhere along the way at record 4,900, because we use the source control mechanisms along with the filters, along with the commit per mechanism, which I don't have set in this example, Rapidi is able to look at the data and reset itself. When we set up the schedules, we have an error retry facility where it says, like, if I encounter an error with this schedule, retry it so many times. After so many times, if I'm still in error, send the notification. So that combination of configuration items in the way the schedule is set up sort of relieves us of being over-notified. I don't know if anybody has experienced that in the past, but I sure have. When you have error message emails flooding your inbox for something that you don't really need to take care of. So we say, like, okay, we only want to take care of it. If it fails 4 times in a row, then send notification that there is something wrong. There's either a data error or there's something wrong with the platform or something like that. If it's just one of these connectivity blips that tend to happen, Rapidi says, okay, I'm in error. I'm going to try the next time. The next time I run, there's no problem. But because I've run and I failed at record 4,900 in my first batch of 5,000, I don't have to go and restart from record number 1, see if it's been transferred successfully, etc. Because of the source control mechanisms that we have and the filter source that we can set up, it's just going to pick up from record 4901 and move on its merry way with the rest of them. So we can see here, I'm setting a default salesperson code. We can maintain that account ownership, etc. like that between accounts and opportunities. And I'm going to start moving a lot quicker now because we're running out of time. So I've already set my demo code. In the opportunities, I've set the flags with my workflow rule for the accounts and the opportunities. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run my customer ad because I want to get those opportunities. In this source control, we also have the ability to use timestamps from the SQL Server side if it's available. We do a little bit of a different thing for Great Plains because that's not available. And then we use DB source control or last modified date on the Salesforce side. And I'm actually going to be running my customer transfer because I have 2 new customers I want to get over there. I did something wrong. Something has gone wrong. What have I done wrong? I don't think I have a demo code in these. No, I don't. So, to make sure that my filter using this demo code will pick these records up and send them. Normally I wouldn't be using a code like this and have to update these. So while that's happening, I'm going to go over and I've added my 2 records to Navision. Now I'm going to add my sales orders to Navision for these 2 new customers. I've already set the company tags that I want to set. I'm going to refresh my Navision list here. There's my 2 new customers. I've added the 2 records. So if I go back to Navision, all right, and here are my 2 new orders, right? So here's my 2 opportunities, my 2 new orders. I can look on this first one. And if I look at the line items, you see I've sent my sale price over. So Rapidi is cognizant of what's being sold, what the financial implications are, what the sales prices are, etc. And it handles all that data without a problem. So I've sent over the orders. Now we're going to take a quick look at Salesforce. If I take a look at this particular account name, you can see I've gotten my NAV customer number back. I can tell when it was transferred. Also, in my item history, I'm showing all the items that this customer has shipped. These are all my open invoices. These are the Rapidi ERP components, and I'm going to talk about these in 1 second. Here's my shipped invoices, and I didn't bring the open orders yet. So what I'm going to do now that I have an open order in Salesforce, in NAV, I'm going to run that and bring it back into. And you can see here I'm using timestamp. So I'm going to get anything that's been added or changed from NAV is going to be picked up as long as it meets these filter criteria. So I've added my 2 order header records. I just need to run the one quick change here to make sure that they are all synchronized properly. And what I'm doing here is I'm actually writing into a custom field in NAV the Salesforce record ID for the header, because it's going to be a lot more effective and efficient to process that for bringing the lines over. So if I look at my demo sales orders that I have available, I now have my 2 new ones from NAV that I've just created. Here's my sales order number. This is my order number in NAV. Okay. And if I look at my related, I should have some sales order lines. Here's my lines that came over from NAV. So even if somebody over in ERP is adding lines to an open sales order, it will come over into Rapidi because I'm using that timestamp facility that says, bring me anything that's been added or updated or changed. Okay, now the last thing I'm going to talk about in our last couple minutes here is these ERP Lightning Components that we have available. So I alluded to them a little bit. So if I look at this particular new account that we have just synchronized between I have a lot of test data associated with it, so I can see the item history, financial summary, sales history. Here's my open order that I just brought over. Here's ledger entries that were demo data. The nice thing about these Lightning Components is that they will work out of the box on an account page, an opportunity page, or a case page. So what that means is if I'm working with a with a customer and I'm looking at an opportunity, I can configure my page to show me the ERP data that makes sense for this particular customer. So even though I'm looking at account level related data, in this particular page layout I've configured, I have my ERP components in a detail tab here. So I'm looking at the opportunity. Here's everything that's happening operationally with the customer, with this account. Likewise, on a case page, if I'm in a service environment, I can show my records of invoices, shipments, open orders, my actual current summary based on open ledger entries and things like that. All right. This has been a very quick overview of what Rapidi can do. One thing I do want to show you is that we will be coming out at some point later in the year. So once you have this data all available, I had mentioned you can get better reporting. We have a dashboard. This is completely under construction, but it's going to give you an idea of what you can do with this data once you get it into your environment. As I mentioned, totally under construction. This is not going to be what it looks like when it's released, but I'm getting an idea of how many products are being generated and be made available for sale, new products, how they're being used in opportunities, what's been closed, how many sales orders are open, how many invoices are open, what the value of those shipments are. I can get really creative and do things like show me my top 20 customers by an invoice amount, how many top 20 products by open order, top 20 products by invoice. We do have Lightning components available related to products. So if I looked at my products page, I could do something like with, let's see, one of these guys. I can see from the product if what's been shipped and what's open. So if you have product management using Salesforce for planning campaigns, things like that, vendor campaigns, you get an idea of what's happening from the product perspective as well. So that's part of our component delivery also. Okay, we are at the end of the hour. I see there's a lot of people still on, so I'm just going to go for a couple more minutes, and I'm going to return to my presentation here. Let's see. All right, so now everybody's really asleep, right? I'm actually going to back up one slide, and I'm going to show you that we did this part. We had a new account, won opportunities, created new customers. We didn't do any contact transfers. We sent new items, pricing. We created some orders from our open opportunities. We saw the orders in Salesforce. We haven't posted them in Nav yet, so we didn't see this part. That's going to take some time, but I want to go over a couple other little items related to Rapidi that are going to be important for you going forward. This is the 30,000-foot connection of the technical picture, and this is what I was talking about. There is a small connector that gets installed on-premise, or if you're in Azure and using that, and we kind of use that for our demo environments. It's behind your Azure firewall. It's totally secure. You only have to open one outbound port. It's all packed. It's compressed. It's SSL encrypted. We're up to SSL 1.2 or TLS 1.2. We're certified by Salesforce. We are the recommended provider for integration to Dynamics. Salesforce does recommend us. And then the Rapidi connector then connects to RapidiOnline in the cloud, which then talks to Salesforce in the cloud. So it really makes it very secure, and because everything is packed and compressed, it's encrypted, it's very fast. You can send tens of thousands of records a day if you need to, without any huge lag times or things like that. It really has a huge impact on the overall enterprise performance. Rapidi, just a little bit about the company, been around for over 20 years, a long time. Both Salesforce and Microsoft partners. We do have worldwide coverage. Our headquarters are in Denmark. We have product development, implementation support, and customer support happening in France and Macedonia. We have implementation support as well as customer support happening in Australia, and I'm here in the Americas supporting our U.S. companies, our U.S. customers with some pre-sales work like this, as well as implementations. It's flexible, it's simple, it's easy to use. We use some cutting-edge technology to make sure this stuff happens properly over the cloud. It's a no-programming approach. You don't have to have any specialized knowledge. As long as you can know how to work a formula in Excel, you can define how you want your data transformed. And we do have our great App Exchange rating. And like I mentioned at the top of the demonstration, we do like to go the extra mile for our customers. We like to consider ourselves more than just a technology provider. We want to be a partner with our customers. So this is why we've gone to the extra effort to deliver the Salesforce objects, the pre-configured mappings between Salesforce and whatever Dynamics application that you're using, as well as our new Lightning component delivery. So this is to make sure that we can set up an integration. Lots of companies can provide you an integration and map data and move it, but we want to make sure that you're getting value out of that integration. That once you go through the effort of planning, building, and delivering an integration solution, that data is actually delivering value. So you're getting a return on your investment with Rapidi because we are providing some value for you with that integrated data. We're not just giving you the technology to integrate it and hoping that you figure it out on your own. We like to be there, hold your hand along the way, make sure you're getting the best use out of this data. Okay, so taking up some extra time today. Sorry about that. There's a lot to cover. Our next one, we might have to go a little bit longer than an hour. But I want to make sure, we have some time for questions. I don't see anybody has raised their hand or answered a question during the webinar. So I either did a very good time or everybody was asleep, and like in that demo slide. But if you have any questions, I'll hang around for a few minutes. Just post them into the question in the webinar control, and I'll answer them for you. And while we are waiting to see if there's any questions, I do like to point out that because we do a direct point-to-point transfer from one end to the other, and there's no requirement for any staging tables to be managed. So if you've ever had any integrations where you are handling recovery from errors and things like that, it can be extremely tedious and complex if you have staging tables that prepare data for integration, and if something goes wrong, you have to reset all that data. If you have that on the source, it can be challenging. If you have it on the destination, it can be really challenging. And Rapidi, as a platform, does not do any interim storage of your data at all on our platform. So we don't do anything in the middle when we're processing a transfer. So if something were to go wrong, there's nothing to unwind on the Rapidi side either. Some competitors of ours, if there's a problem in the transfer, there's a complicated error recovery procedure you have to go through. Okay, we have a question here. How do I expand this thing? All right, so Dave has asked if we have an on-demand video for this. We will have an on-demand video for this, and it will be available on our resources page. So if you go to www.rapidionline.resources/resources, we have white papers, ebooks, case stories from customers, fact sheets. You can access our documentation that's currently available on wiki.myrapidi.com, and that's continually being updated. And I just want to leave you with the points about Rapidi that you can take away from here, the key points. It's a simple solution. It's a subscription-based solution. You can create and manage a lot of integrations on your own. You can use ours to start with, do whatever you want with them. Once you get to be a subscriber, we provide you everything you need to make this data alive in Salesforce and make it usable in Salesforce. And we also have a connection to Microsoft CRM if you're using that. And it's fast. Because we do a lot of the work, we've already done a lot of the work out of the gate, you can be up and running, literally in just a few days. Depending on the complexity of your environments and what you're trying to integrate, it can be just a few days that you're alive with an integration. And it's robust, right? So you don't need to know anything about specialized programming. It's based on proven best practices, and this is totally flexible. Any transfer can be any direction, can be bidirectional, and you can have as many transfers as necessary. You can move as much data as you need to over those transfers, and it doesn't matter how many users you have on either side. Okay? So I want to thank everybody for staying with me. I know everybody stayed here till the end, and I really appreciate that because we did go over. So definitely, if you have any questions at all, if you want more information, please don't hesitate to send an email to info@rapidionline.com. Visit our website, request a quote. We do have plenty of customer references we can direct you to. We have a lot of very happy customers who like using the product. And we have some customers who also have implemented Rapidi because they were having problems with some other integration tools. And so we can hook you up with somebody like that if you need to talk to them. And like I said, we connect to all the different flavors of the Dynamics applications. So we have references to talk about their experience integrating Salesforce with Great Plains, with Nav, with AX, and with Dynamics 365 Business Central. And since the Business Central and Finance and Operations products are very new, within a couple of months, we will also have a reference to talk about their experience integrating Salesforce and Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. All right, well, that is it for today. We've covered a lot of information. If you'd like a personalized demo something specific to your environment, or you'd like to have some further detailed discussions about your integration project and what you're trying to do, and can Rapidi help you do it, like I said, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. You can fill out a request for quote online, or send an email to info@rapidionline.com. Again, my name's Sean Abity. I'm the head of customer success here in the U.S. for Rapidi, and I want to thank everybody for joining me today.